Hey, it's Shit Talk Reviews. Welcome to this episode. How's it going, fellas?
It's going good.
Doing well.
As always, I'm John, and I'm pointing, but you don't know who I'm pointing at.
Derek?
Yeah, David.
Yes, David.
He forgot his name because his cranium is so huge.
There it is. See it, everyone?
There's nothing but rocks inside of that thing.
I could grow my hair. I could grow my hair out and just have bangs. I mean,
have you considered implants just to bring it down?
You know what, though? If you did that, you'd look like Cold Chamber circa like 1997. And you have to make your bangs with your bald head just green bangs. And then do like the robot while you're playing your bass. Yeah.
It's a good look.
Thank you. Yeah.
Yep. That's a good look. You should consider it. So let's get right into things today. We are going to discuss the new release from Queens of the Stone Age, In Times New Roman. Were you guys Queens fans prior to this at all?
Yeah, somewhat, John, for me.
Need you ask? I'm a knuckle dragger. No, I can't stand him.
All right, well, that's fair. Okay, well, this should be an interesting conversation because I'm kind of all over the place on this record. The quick backstory on the band: formed around 96 from Seattle, stoner rock band, quite a few records, 16 albums. Yeah.
It's not even a stoner rock band. That's an insult to all stoner rock bands that are out there, but keep going.
Well, then let's take a second to discuss the genre type. Who represents stoner rock?
Oh, Fish, The Dead. I mean, it goes on, right?
Oh, I wouldn't call Fish or The Dead stoner rock.
Oh my God, I would stoner music?
Maybe stoner music, but not and this is why I hate genre.
Oh, I'm sorry. I thought
stoner
you said
rock.
Okay.
No, it's as a genre.
Yeah.
I agree with what you said. Yeah, plenty of stoners listen to Fish and the Dead, but
yeah,
I think Masters of Reality would fall into the stoner rock.
Sure. Telekinetic Yeti, Resin. I mean, the list goes on and on. Down probably falls into that category. These guys are, they're pop radio rock to me. But we'll get into the reason why I really don't like it later on.
I always thought of Queen of the Stone Age a little punk, a little rock, a little bit of metal, a little bit of everything. I mean, they do come with a broad spectrum as far as what they put out.
Yeah.
My take, right? I think a lot of this album had a lot of what I just said, but we'll get into it.
Oh yeah, there's a number of bands I think these guys were listening to when this material was written, and I wouldn't put any of the bands that I picture them listening to in the stoner rock category. But
I mean, honestly, guys, for me, a lot of this album felt like Talking Heads, David Bowie. It felt a lot like that for me. I might be off track, but man, I heard a lot of Talking Heads in a lot of this music.
I felt some Doors and some Bowie.
But definitely, yeah, Bowie for sure. Not so much the Doors for me, but again, Talking Heads.
It's sort of a 12-bar blues vibe on a lot of the tracks on this record.
I heard White Stripes in there, like tons of White Stripes. If you go back and listen to the earlier White Stripes material and you listen to this album, it's produced, virtually the same. And, I think a lot of my issue with this, it stems from its classic Rick Rubin. Rick Rubin is notorious for watering down bands, watering down the heaviness, the fullness of a band. And, look at Metallica's Death Magnetic. It's just stripped down, very thin music. And I hear that here, and there's just overproduction. There's so much going on production-wise.
Yeah, I agree.
That the heaviness was just absolutely stripped away. And some of their earlier works just was, there was still that heavier sound that, the stoner doom feeling stuff was there on the earlier stuff. I'm telling you, Rick Rubin got his hands on this material and stripped it, and he tinkered, and it makes for a less than stellar album. And it's classic Rick Rubin.
I didn't think Rick Rubin produced this. I thought this was a self-produced record. I know they've worked in the past.
This album, The New Times Roman, was worked at the Pink Duck Studios, which is Josh's studio, as well as Rick Rubin's Shangri-La studio in Malibu, California. So listen, all the signatures there. I have been talking about Rick Rubin going back to my Hit the Pit and Mega Kung Fu days. He waters shit down and ruins bands. And, you know, I will say this. I mean, I have to read this to you. Geezer Butler, after doing 13 with Rick Rubin, he said to Eddie Trunk a couple years back, he says, it was a weird experience, especially with being told to forget that you're a heavy metal band. That was the first thing Rick said to us. He said, play your very first album. Cast your mind back to when there was no such thing as heavy metal or anything like that, and pretend it's a follow-up album to that, which is the most ridiculous thing to think. And he went on, and he didn't have good things to say. Ozzy absolutely hated working with Rick Rubin. And, you know, the album did well because everybody knew it was the last Black Sabbath album. But it was thin. It was not a heavy record. It didn't have some oomph behind it, and it could have been a lot better. And I feel like the same thing rings true here. This band is talented. It just is tinkered with and tinkered with and tinkered with, and it just sounds very watered down.
Yeah, I certainly won't deny that this is not a heavy record by any stretch. Some of their past material is they've got some ripping tracks. Song for the Deaf is just, I wouldn't call it blistering, but it's a cooking, you know,
it's a great album,
rocking piece of music. Yeah.
Yeah.
And this is not. And for the record, I didn't think you guys were going to love this, but I figured it warrants talking about because it's Queens of the Stone Age. They're a big outfit. They've been around a long time. And they have put out good stuff before.
You know what, John? It's like Avenged Sevenfold. You wait 5 years for them to come out with their new album. You're disappointed. It's been 6 years since this band put out their last album, so the expectations are there. For me, it just fell. It fell on its face.
The other thing that and I just have to say, and I said this to you, John, was that their earlier works there was 5 albums with Mark Lanegan from Screaming Trees that was involved with the band. And I went back and I listened to that material with Lanegan, and I like it a lot more. And that's not to say that it's because I'm a fan of Screaming Trees and Mark Lanegan, but there's something missing in this. There's no earworms, there's no hooks, there's no heaviness. It's just this watered down attempt at being Queens of the Stone Age. And I do wonder how much of Lanegan, having not been in the band now for, I think this is the second album, has hurt them. And again, they might be established enough that fans of the band are going to love everything that they do anyways.
That's
but
right.
I do think from a production standpoint, it's lacking. And just a songwriting standpoint, it just isn't creative. It's not pushing the envelope. It's not interesting at all.
It's funny Derek brings that up because, first of all, I love the Screaming Trees. Oliveri was there from 01 to 05. And I made that note that Derek just said, and I even threw Nick Oliveri in there, who was in the band from 98 to 04, because in my opinion, I'm not a huge fan of them, but I'm a fan enough to know that when those two guys left the band, it changed the dynamics. No doubt. Yeah. Especially on the harmony and vocals, those two guys added to the band. That's my opinion.
Queens has had the list of people that have been in that band, you know, done collaborations and projects or played on certain songs on the records over the years is huge.
Well, that's the problem with this band. They've had a revolving door of exactly what you just said.
I wish I could remember where I read this so I could give the writer credit, but I read a review for this album. I'll paraphrase and say, it's got a lot of good songs on the record. Are any of them going to wind up on, you know, the long lasting playlist of Queen's classics? Absolutely not. You know, on an individual basis. Yeah. On an individual basis, if you take it song by song, the songs aren't necessarily bad songs. You may like some more than others, but on a case by case basis, there's some good stuff on there. But for me, it was a miss because it's not what I wanted from Queens. I wanted another heavy ripping album with just a bunch of crushing tunes on it, and it's just not there.
Go ahead, John. Sorry.
I will say this though about Queens of the Stone Age, and that's one of the very punk rock things about them is they're going to do whatever the fuck they want. I respect that. I kind of dig that this is what your expectation is. Well, if we meet it, I guess that's good for you. But if we don't, that's not my fucking problem.
Yeah.
I say this every week. Consistency matters. again, if you have created a precedent with your fan base, going off a reservation completely or bringing in a Rick Rubin to water down your sound and make you sound like a lesser version of yourself, you're going to disappoint people. And sometimes, it's kind of like with going to work. If you have set a precedent, you've got to stay at that precedent. You don't go backwards. You're always moving forwards. And you should be trying to make the sound that you have better, better. But going off the reservation completely or diluting what you do, it's a miss.
No, I was just going to say, if you listen to a lot of this album, especially like Paper Machete or all that stuff, he's got some. Josh Holmes he's got some anger on this album. A lot of it's directed to what I think is a girlfriend or an ex-wife. So it kind of sounds like there's a little bit of anger in here. Maybe this is more his album than the band's.
He has some legal problems, and look, I don't think we should touch on it in this podcast. And it's out there, and it's going to go through the court system and whatever. We can stay away from that. But look, the guy is talented. I also had a note here that maybe he's the Henry Cavill of music. He's hard to work with because of the revolving door of folks coming and going within the band. Henry Cavill can't seem to keep a job as an actor. He's Superman one second, he's The Witcher the next, and then he's being shown the door. It makes you wonder about personality and what people do behind closed doors. And maybe that's part of the problem. But you can definitely hear that in the album here, in this album. He definitely was purging some demons and putting his perspective on whatever is going on in his world out there.
Yeah.
I read that the instrumental tracks got recorded 2.5 years prior to him coming in and putting his vocals down, which, is, I guess, neither here nor there. But who knows what was going on in his personal realm that might have impacted the lyrical content that went down, that might have been different had they tracked the vocals 2 years prior.
Let me ask you guys, were you more, because very similar, we waited for albums for 5-6 years for both these bands. So were you more upset about Avenged Sevenfold, or were you more upset about Queen of the Stone Age? You were more, yeah. Me too. I was more disappointed with Avenged for sure.
We've talked about this before. This begs the question, do bands have a right to evolve and grow and change, or do they not? I mean, I think they do, but they do it, as you were saying, Derek, they do it at risk of alienating some of their fan base in the process. And I think this record, I don't think is a huge shift for Queens, but I think it's less heavy, but it's not like Avenged Sevenfold's current record relative to their last record, which was, who knows?
This feels like a commercial money grab. And whenever you throw Rick Rubin out there with a band, it's like, oh, okay. They're going to step up their game. And I don't always agree. I believe that Rick Rubin is a negative for most artists. But that being said, I think that this was an attempt at being more commercial. Like I said, it felt like more of the Red Stripes production values with Queens of the Stone
White
Age.
Stripes.
What did I say?
Red.
Oh, Red Stripe, the beer. Yeah. See what's on my mind on a Friday.
The Red Stripes should be the reggae version of the White Stripes. Just do all, they should be the Dred Zeppelin of White Stripes.
Perfect. Yeah. But yeah, it that's the way it sounded to me. And that's not what I was looking for.
Listen,
not from this band.
Like Metallica, Avenged, some of the podcasts we've done, I don't knock anybody. The band's been around since 96. They got 8 albums. Like John just said before, let them do it. They earned it, right? I mean, who are we to say they can't experiment? But Derek said it before. I mean, you lose fans. You're going to go, if you're going to take a risk and you're going to go in this direction, you are taking a risk. It happens. You will lose fans. You will have fans that love it and fans that hate it. And then you have fans that just don't come back. It is what it is. There
is a degree of accountability, which is the fan base. And our whole point of doing this was to actually turn people on to new music. It's almost like information overload. There's so much music for people to go find that they get, it's paralysis by analysis. It's like sitting with your wife on a Friday night and you have every single streaming channel and you have no idea where to start. I want somebody like us to tell us what shows are good, what music is good, what's worth the time, or what's not worth the time. And so I think
here we go.
So here we go. don't listen to Queens of the Stone Age's In Times, New Roman. Listen to their old shit. It's way better.
It sucks, man. When you have a band that you like or a band that you're familiar with and they come out with material and it's not very good, it's like an uppercut. It sucks. I get it. So, and I was disappointed in this, just like I was with Avenged and some of the previous Metallica albums. Those bands that have been around a long time, you just have those expectations that you're not going to have this situation that we're in right now, but it happens.
Well, I'll make sure I pick a winner for next week.
Listen, this wasn't bad. I'm not going to shit on it. There's stuff on here I liked. Was it all over the place? Absolutely. Did it have, sometimes it had a soundtrack feeling to me for an 80s movie, so my mind was all over the place on this album. I didn't hate it. I didn't love it. It had some parts to it that I enjoyed, but I kind of felt like that all over on every song.
That's fair. Let's change our standout tracks protocol just for this one. What were the songs that you hated the most?
I think it was What the Peephole Say. I couldn't get through it. I'd be listening to it in the car. Boom. On to the next. I just couldn't do it.
What's funny about that is that sounded to me like a flock of seagulls in a soundtrack 80s movie, that song. I didn't get it,
It was a disaster.
First thing I thought when that song started, it was like, oh, I guess this is the summer song on the record.
You're right.
Let's go to the beach.
There you go. I don't know, Dave, guys.
So what do you know? Standouts. Let's hear the ones you didn't like on it.
There was 10 songs on here and I didn't like a lot of them, John. I'm going to be honest with you. A lot of it just sounded too 80s for me, too all over the place. Gosh, John, this is tough. Sicily was my favorite.
Spit it out, man. Come on.
I don't know. I honestly, there really wasn't one that stood out for me. That was really one of my favorites. My favorite one was Sicily. I thought that was good. Had a good bass line. Some good guitar at times, but other than that, John, it's really hard to say which one was bad because some of them to me just weren't very good. I know I'm kind of circling around your answer, but honestly, it's I don't want to pinpoint one. I'm going to make it easy. I just didn't like it. Yeah.
Oh God, I feel bad because historically I like Queens of the Stone Age.
Yeah.
And I like a lot of the stuff that they've put out over the years. But when I wrote down the track listing, making notes as I go through the record, I got to track 5, Made to Parade, and my notes just say nope.
Yeah.
You want to know what I like? I got some rubber bands at Staples the other day. I like this box of rubber bands more than I like In Times New Roman.
I know it's hard.
I know
it's hard to remember the songs that kind of go back in your memory bank. But the one song, Carnivore, was that to me was maybe my worst because I was like, "What the hell is this?" It was terrible. It was all over the place. To me, it made no sense. So that was probably my worst, John. That particular song.
Dave, do you want to see Derek get really riled up?
Sure.
Listening to Carnivore, one or more of the guys in the band were listening to Typo Negative before they put Carnivore down. I just heard like these faint vibes of it. I was like, I hear Typo Negative in there.
Yeah.
And immediately, of course, thought of Derek.
Hey, you know what? Greatness is often imitated, but never duplicated. These fuckers can't touch Peter Steele.
Point. Shall we dispense with the pleasantries and just get right to the meat and potatoes of it?
Sure. I mean, yeah. Who wants to go first on this one?
5.
There you go.
5. That's it.
Yeah. I mean, you have anything more to say, Derek? Or are you just
I just want to delete it from never listen to it again.
What did you give Avenge? I'm just curious.
I don't remember.
Okay.
No, it was better than 5. I'll tell you that. They at least tried. And their production values were good. The production sucked on this and the music sucked. So
I'm there with Derek. The production quality was not very good. The lyrical content was okay. I mean, sounds like he's got some deep demons that he's trying to get out there or talk about, and some inner pain, whatever you want to call it. The theme to me, just wasn't there. And The performance quality, I never knock anybody for that. It's on this, it was decent. I'm not going to bash these guys for something they put out. For me, it wasn't very good. I'm going to give it, anywhere between a 5 and a 5.5. That's that. I can't go any more than that. I just can't.
That's fair. Well, it's interesting. You guys both really dislike the production. There were, as a production fan, there was stuff that I really liked on the record from a production standpoint. There's also stuff that I wasn't wild about, but I'm a fan of the studio trickery. So that was the highest portion of my overall score. But with that being said, I still only landed at a 6.
So we're all same page.
Yeah, it did not land well for me.
Disappointing, really, for me, because man, Songs for the Deaf compared to this. I mean, come on. What the hell's going on? Right? How do you just jump and leap from something so out of the character? It's so different. I guess I just don't understand it.
2000?
Yeah, 2000, maybe mid 2000s.
2002, something like that.
Yeah. And I'll be honest with you, their last 3 albums, I'm familiar with it, but nothing like their first 3. It kind of just dropped off for me after there. But I should have went back and listened to the album or 2 before this one, and I usually do. But to be honest with you guys, I think I was so disgusted in this, I kind of just was like, yeah, I mean, I hate to say it, but I think after listening to this one, I was just kind of like, yeah, I think I'm done.
Yeah. We're Ship Talk Reviews. Good night.
Well, that's the thing, we historically have not shit talked the bands too much, with the exception of Avenged Sevenfold, but this one, not great.
Yeah.
We should point out that, as always, these things are subjective, and there are going to be people out there that listen to this and think it's a great record. Yeah. And they'll be well within our rights to tell us all to, go fuck ourselves, I guess. But
and listen, it's like this week when I came into your office. I mean, it's Queen of the Stone Age. You got to hear it, right? You got to give these guys a listen. I mean, you do you have to. You don't just not listen to it.
Yeah. To Derek's point earlier, we're doing a disservice if we don't tell people what we think suck.
Yeah.
In addition to what we think is good.
And it sucks saying it sucks, right? It sucks doing this. It's when nobody wants to shit on a band.
Yeah. Derek, do you want to share who we get graced with next week, or is that privileged information so far?
No, I'm teeing up the new Puddle of Mud for you guys.
Sweet.
Nice.
Just kidding. I'm not.
That's not funny.
No Puddle of Mud. I'll let you know.
All right. Well, unless we want to spend another couple of minutes, which I'm totally on board with, discussing Dave's forehead, let's put this one in a box and put it on a shelf.
You know what I think? I think we should do a test next week. Get a football helmet and see if his massive cranium will fit inside of it.
I have a kind of an oval pinhead, so I think it will go in there pretty good.
Okay, so if it gets in there and we stuff that great gazoo in there, will it come out? Or do we need to get butter?
Listen, if you get me, could you get me a kazoo helmet with the antennas sticking out?
Yeah, I'm sure we can find it somewhere. Yeah. Halloween's coming up. We're definitely doing that.
Anyway, it is what it is, boys.
In any case, we appreciate those that stop by to hang out with us for a little bit, and look forward to doing this again next week.
See ya.